Hello, my name is Ryan Beam. I'm a student at the University of Kentucky studying economics and statistics. In this series, I just like to explore how data is applied in real-world settings and how the field is continuing to evolve across industries and roles. Today, I'm joined by Thomas Borda, a senior account executive at Google. Thomas, thank you so much for meeting with me.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. So I just kind of wanted to get into first a little bit about your career trajectory. So I know you started at UK, obviously in undergrad, and then moved into an MBA at Johns Hopkins to career and enterprise tech sales at this point. So could you just kind of walk me through how that path has unfolded and what were some of the key decisions along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. When I was at University of Kentucky, I majored in kinesiology and exercise science. So not really technology related at all, but I wanted to get my doctorate in physical therapy. When I graduated, I switched my major a little bit by my junior year. So I ended up doing a fifth year at Kentucky. A lot of my friends were out making money. They were in sales jobs in the logistics industry or other industries. And, I didn't want to stick around in Kentucky making $12 an hour as a PT tech. So I ended up getting recruited to a tech company, a public company called Vocus that has since been acquired. And from there, I just, started off in small business sales. Before that, I was actually a business development rep. So I was just booking meetings for sales reps, moved to small business sales, to mid-market sales, and then into enterprise and strategic sales. So I think that UK gave me a good, global perspective on different industries because I had, sort of a background in healthcare through my education there. But I wanted to bridge the gap. And so that's why I ended up going to Hopkins for my MBA. Also, it was a differentiator. I always figured if I wanted a certain job and I was competing with somebody else on paper and we both did really, really well, what was going to be the differentiator? Who would you choose, the guy with the MBA or the guy without the MBA? So that was one. And then two, you want credibility with clients. So when you reach out, I think the credentialing can matter if you're working with C-suite executives. And so, they want to know that they're working with someone that actually understands how their business works, how to find business value and things of that nature. So, but ultimately I aside from all the compensation benefits associated with being successful in sales, I really chose enterprise sales because it's the ultimate meritocracy, right? So it allows you to use sort of that MBA level understanding of business and business value while directly impacting a company's bottom line by bringing in the right solutions that ultimately help them solve some sort of pain point that they're experiencing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that's a really interesting perspective, especially kind of talking about that differentiator with the MBA, because that's something as I get out of college, kind of thinking about how I can differentiate myself when I'm considering grad school and things like that. So I really appreciate that perspective. Now I kind of want to get into a little bit about the sales side of things, because you've obviously had a very successful, extremely impressive numbers throughout your sales career. So I was just curious, what separates the salesman, especially in tech sales, for someone who just meets the quota versus somebody like you who has consistently year after year crushed those quotas?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to unpack there. It's a great question. So there are people that I've run into really fantastic sales reps, but once they hit their number, they take their foot off the gas and they relax. I think if you want to constantly surpass quota, you can make the most money in sales when you're at 200%, 150%, or more than just 100%. That's when your accelerators kick in. So you have to have your eye on some sort of prize. For me, that was like, do I want a new house? Do I want a boat? Do I want a new car? Do I want, more money in my investment portfolio? And so stopping 100% is really your starting point. And so for those accelerators to kick in. So you have to have the motivation and the work ethic. Like that's always what made me different. Like I might not be the best salesperson in the world. Like I have a couple of friends who I think are far greater than me, but one thing they will never do is outwork me. And so when I started my career, I was in the office at 7:30 in the morning. I was starting my prospecting for the day, and I was spending my 9 to 5, so to speak, talking to customers, making calls, booking meetings, running meetings, strategizing for those meetings. But I think in sales, what really differentiates and separates the good salespeople from the great salespeople is that they spend their time on what's called discovery. And so truly understanding the customer's pain points and quantifying those pain points and showcasing how, whatever technology you're selling can help them achieve those goals, right? So what's the measure at today that they're looking to improve, and where do they want it to be? And then how can you help them get there? And so that's another thing. But I'd also say there's a couple tactical sales things that every salesperson should be doing. And the great ones do this really, really well, time and time again. So really they have a repeatable system where they're, one, identifying pain and quantifying it. Two, they're grooming and finding a champion. The champion is someone who's going to sell for you internally when you're not there, and they're going to introduce you to the economic buyer. And so you find that person by understanding who is going to benefit most from solving whatever problems you're aiming to solve. And then after that, it's using that champion, or partnering with them rather, to get to the economic buyer and layering in your executives. So enterprise sales, it's never just, you're not selling to one person. It's normally like a committee. There's probably, I've sold to groups of as big as 60 people, sometimes more than that. I don't know how you make decisions with that many people, but they do evaluate that way sometimes. So a lot of people have, they'll have to do scorecards and things like that, especially if there's like an RFP. But once you can layer in your executives, you can connect with that economic buyer and understand that economic buyer's success criteria and sell to that. So you can't sell the product and the capabilities. Like, that's never going to get you anywhere. You have to sell the outcome. You sell the dream and you show them how you're going to get there. And then I would say the last thing that I'm thinking is really kind of relentless qualification. So, the best reps are great at saying no. And you have to know which opportunities aren't a fit and be able to tell the customer, no matter how bad you want to, get another sale or make the extra dime, if it's not worth your time, the cream is always going to rise to the top. And so you need to dedicate your energy on opportunities that are actually a good fit and aren't going to keep you up at night and are actually, there's a path to closure. So that's what I would say really differentiates. It's that preparation, hard work, strong discovery skills, process rigor, and relentless qualification.
Yeah, that's really detailed and really interesting. I'm someone who, I don't have a background in sales, and I don't have much experience in it. So but it's something you hear, about all the time. Like, sales are very important, and, regardless of the industry, regardless of what kind of company. So it's something that I think is very interesting to learn about from somebody, especially in kind of the tech field where I'm angling at. So I think that, that's really cool, and cool how you've found success through those different methodologies and kind of tenets in how you approach it. I do kind of want to get into a little bit about your transition recently, because I know you've made the jump to Google, which I know, kind of jumping from around to different places, Google has a vast amount of resources that, that might not be available at other companies. So just curious kind of how things may have changed, or how things are a little bit different now that you're at Google, in terms of, how you sell, how that process and atmosphere is like.
Yeah, well, Google's a really great company to work for. We have just so many experts across so many different domains, everything from infrastructure to security to artificial intelligence, data analytics, business intelligence, developer tools. And so many people that I can tap into, and I'm really lucky, but that also presents a big challenge, because I think a big part of my job is networking internally. It's finding the right people. And then, I probably spend 60% of my time trying to sell to other people and experts internally, and why they should come into my deal, or why they should come into this executive briefing, and what I need them to do. And so they don't want to focus on science experiments. So this kind of goes back to qualifying specific opportunities. It can't be a science experiment for whomever you're talking to. It has to be a really complex problem that's worth solving, that will generate revenue, 10x revenue ideally, for the customer. And so I think moving to Google really required me because we can do anything, right? Google Cloud, we have entire companies are built on top of Google Cloud. And software applications, you name it. So you really have to shift from selling a specific tool to selling a platform ecosystem. So again, selling that vision for innovation. So they might start with, an AI use case, but you have to understand with that use case, what data do they need? And so that opens the door to things like data estate modernization and our data analytics platform here at Google. So you really have to think big picture and help the customer zoom out and not be myopic in terms of what they're looking to procure. So, at Google Scale, you're really not just solving a business problem. You end up helping these customers rethink their entire digital infrastructure.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That sounds just like, kind of an amazing place to be. Not only that, but going off of just all the different experts you said, at your disposal, and kind of all the information that you two have to digest and understand to be able to connect these different dots. It puts you in an interesting perspective, especially from a sales perspective. So I was just kind of curious, you sell to these different enterprises, these different people, these different companies all the time. What is something that, coming from like the sales perspective, it might be a little harder to see if versus somebody who's just like on the engineering side of things, for example?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the first thing that comes to mind when you ask that question is no one knows how to buy software. No one knows how to buy technology. And I often see it as my job is like, I need to help them buy. And you do that really by listening and coaching your customers on like what the process is, right? So you have to know what your sales process is. You have to guide the customer through it. And so a lot of times you'll get on a call and they're trying to buy something. Oh, we've been mandated. We have this RFP out for conversational AI. Okay, well, what's driving that? And what is that going to get you that you don't already have today? And what is the current process and everything like that. So you really have to help people kind of think through like the benefits here and why they're actually doing this. And then you guide them through. So typically it goes, you do your discovery, you find your pain, you move them to a demonstration, you showcase the product, how it can alleviate those pain points and solve for the outcomes they're looking for. Then you need to get at them a proposal. And I'm oversimplifying this, of course, but then you want to revise that proposal by scoping it and get them a more refined one. Then you start to negotiate and close. So I would definitely say that no one knows how to buy, and understanding your process so you can help the customer adequately is critical. A couple other things. I mentioned this earlier, but you're never selling to one person. And so there's a lot of politics involved behind the scenes with these customers. And so you really have to understand the power dynamics. Does your champion, do they have power and do they have influence? Power as in, do they have the ability to buy, or can they introduce you to the person that does? And who are the people in the room that actually matter and have the loudest voices and that people are going to listen to about their recommendation? So it's really identifying your detractors, people that are against you, people that are sitting on the fence, and your champions. And all those fence sitters are the people that you really need to convert to win the deal. But I've also found that when selling into Fortune 500 companies, your biggest competitor isn't really, like, for me, it's not Amazon, it's not Microsoft. It's just, or another software company, it's the status quo. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot easier for people to just continue doing what they're doing because there's no work involved. And sometimes buying new technology or innovating is, brings about more risk. And also there's other considerations, and they have to think about security. Is this application secure? How is that going to impact my enterprise? And so there's a lot to unpack there. But I would say, just to kind of sum it up, no one knows how to buy software, so know your process is what I've learned. Consensus is king, so identify your fence sitters and your champions and those with power. And then how do you beat the status quo? Like, you have to be able to come with a strong point of view on why status quo is no longer an option. And then how can you overcome their fear of risk and rocking the boat?
That's very interesting, especially that point you said about like selling against the status quo. And I think you see that a lot, especially in technology. I agree, like, where something's running on 40-year-old hardware just because it works, not because it's super efficient. And so that's a very interesting point, like kind of having to sell against that. And I imagine comes with a whole host of challenges.
Yeah, like we take out Microsoft all the time, and sell Google Workspace to get rid of Office. But like, some people have made their entire careers on Microsoft, and all they know is, Microsoft, the Microsoft ecosystem. And so to those people, it's really scary and a lot of work to transition from something that they've been working with for 20 years to a much more innovative platform that touts a lot of buzzwords like AI and automation and other things like that.
Right. And that kind of that pace of change and being adaptable, I think that's, more important than ever, especially this kind of ties into my next question. And one of the buzzwords of, our current times, AI, like you just mentioned, I know Google's investing massively in AI. A lot of great resources and things being put out by Google in that front. So I was just curious, as somebody who's kind of inside Google at this really monumental time, what are some things, from your perspective that excite you about AI or that you think is interesting from the lens that you have compared to, somebody like me who doesn't have that inside perspective?
Yeah, I think what's really exciting to me about artificial intelligence is just the pace of innovation. So at Google, we have probably the most, well, I'll take a step back. So Google over the past 20 years, a lot of people don't know, we've been responsible for around 85 to 90% of the AI breakthroughs. For example, Google actually is the one who invented the transformer architecture, which is the T in GPT, if you think of ChatGPT, right? Generative pre-trained transformer. And so that whole architecture we actually built and deployed for YouTube and other businesses within Google. And so I think we are pumping out new AI innovations every week, specifically around agentic AI, which brings me to my next point. That is probably the most exciting aspect. So we've moved from sort of chatbot or just generative AI, writing things like emails or having chat conversations, to agentic AI, which is AI that can actually plan, reason, and take action towards a specific goal, right? So AI that's actually doing what humans do, accomplishing tasks, and they're executing these workflows autonomously, right? So once you set it up, they just run. And I think businesses are realizing a lot of, just tremendous value in terms of cost savings, efficiency, and how they're thinking about reskilling their workforce. And so it opens up just a whole nother conversation, because business leaders are nervous about it, because a lot of these companies that you talk to, even the big ones, they don't want to get rid of people on their team. The more headcount you have, the more political capital you have internally. But what they do want to do is become more efficient. And so, I was actually talking to a client the other day. They're like, well, we don't build AI agents. We don't even know how, and we don't want to. And my response back was, AI is here whether you like it or not. And so it's kind of an adapt or die situation. And I think what agentic AI has shown us is that data readiness is really important for organizations, right? So clients are realizing that their AI is only as good as their data. And so the data is the fuel, is really the lifeblood for agentic AI. And so, this is forcing massive, healthy cleanup of enterprise data silos.
Yeah, and I think that last point too is very interesting, and it's part of what has me. It's kind of it's an exciting yet scary time, and where I'm at in college, trying to see how things are going to transform, where I should spend my time, and things like that. And that is one thing that kind of pulls me toward that data side of things. Is number one, I find it interesting, and like you said, all this is kind of the backbone of your data pipelines and how good, what information the agents can even run on is a really valuable piece there. And that kind of brings me to kind of my wrapping up question, because you've given me a lot of great information and honestly a lot of things that could be taken as advice already. But I kind of wanted to ask you, if you're in my shoes, 19 in college at this time of rapid development, from your seat in enterprise tech, what is something that I need to focus on, or some things that I should keep in mind in my early career? I'm kind of trying to build into that tech path.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I would say that, your background in statistics it's going to be a superpower for you. So, in the future of tech, being able to interpret data, to work with data, and to tell a story from that data and understand critical metrics that data can bring to you is going to be more valuable than, for example, knowing how to code. So, I'll tell you, over 50% of our code at Google is AI generated now. And so I think that having a good understanding of how to work with data and which is the lifeblood of AI that we talked about, and how to orchestrate and build agents with that data. So understanding what you can do with it is going to help you really differentiate yourself. Eventually, we're going to be in a world where individuals have teams of agents that they're orchestrating, that they're overseeing, that they're building, sometimes in natural language, sometimes with the help of AI coding. But it's great if two people can do a job, right? But who are you going to hire if one can do it with a team of people and one only needs a team of AI agents that work 24/7, don't take vacations or bathroom breaks, and are, less than 1/20th of the cost. So, that's a big differentiator for me. And then I would say other advice is understand the business value. I know that sounds so cliche, but don't just look at, the technology. I think your background in economics will help you kind of understand the unit economics as well. So tech exists at the end of the day to make companies more money or to help them save money in some regard, in some area. So if you can understand those economics, you can sell or build anything.
That's really great advice. I really appreciate that. And I'm excited to kind of reflect on those things and kind of try to build toward that direction, based on some of that advice you gave me. So thank you so much. And, and again, thank you so much for, taking the time out of your day to speak with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It was great talking to you, Ryan. Appreciate you having me.